What a wonderful week in the world of college football. It is week 6 now. And so it is time for the Unafraid Show Mailbag. And we got so much to talk about today because you guys sent all your stuff in to IMMAD at unafraidshow.com. And you sent it in to or at George Wrighster or at Unafraid Show. And these are the things that are most important to you that you guys wanted to know the most. And don't forget to like, subscribe, tell a friend about the show. Most importantly, share. Hit that like button if you're watching it on YouTube. If you're watching it on Twitter or Facebook, click the YouTube link so then you can get notifications as well. But last week in college football, I told you contenders and pretenders were being exposed. And one of them led to the first question. Did the officials do the right thing, overturning the game winning catch by Da'Quan Felton in the Virginia Tech Miami game? The answer is 100% no. That was a fail by the officials. Now, there's a question about whether that was a catch, not a catch. I saw the ACC. They put their statement out. Well, the guy was out of bounds and this, that. Are we sure? Are we sure? No, we are not. That was the thing. I would have been fine if they had called it an incomplete pass. I would have been fine had they called it a touchdown. But the problem is there was not conclusive evidence in any way, shape, form, or fashion about that play. Nothing about that was conclusive, not even a little bit. So why on earth, how on earth could they reverse that call? I talked to a couple of Miami fans and they were like, hey, yo, we'll take the win, but that was the wrong call. 100%. And at least they can admit it. This felt like an ACC Buffalo Wild Wings moment where they were pushing it. Oh, we need a different outcome. We need some help. Or like the SEC shorts where the SEC calls in a miracle up to heaven. That was the situation. So, but I do believe that Miami was getting a little bit cocky and a little bit overconfident. And it might come back and bite them in the ass at some point in time because you had Cam Ward start to point where the damn play was going and everything else. You're like, chill, fam. Just relax. So I do believe that this was the wrong call, but you guys can leave it in the chat, leave it in the comments, and of course, we will take any more questions that you guys put in the chat on YouTube as well. Question number 2. George, you were victimized by big game Kalen DeBoer. And they're talking about when he was at Washington a few times. Damn, why you got to add a few times? But anyways, let me read the question over. So, because I just got triggered reading this question. You were victimized by big game Kalen DeBoer a few times. Any advice for Georgia fans who thought that with Nick Saban out of the way, the Dogs were about to have a generational run? First thing, Kalen DeBoer is a hell of a coach. He inherited a hell of a situation at Alabama. Yes, they had some transfers out, but the reality is that roster was still stocked. And the most important thing that Kalen DeBoer had, which is a quarterback in Jalen Milroe. So I thought that it was going to take, a year or two for Kalen DeBoer to get his footing. But no, he clearly has his footing down at Alabama. Does Alabama look unbeatable now? No. I don't even have them as the number 1 team in the country right now. I have them behind Texas, and we're talking about Tennessee in that conversation too, based upon what they've done. Now, for those Georgia fans who thought that with Saban out of the way, that they were going to have a generational run, they're already on a generational run. The only games that they've lost in the last 3 years have been against Bama. That's it. Literally nothing has changed for Georgia. They got multiple national championships. They are still one of the favorites to win the national championship this year. So they are literally on a generational run. So nothing has changed. And the difference is that game had a lot of stakes, a lot of bragging rights and everything. But the difference is it wasn't for all the marbles because the SEC is going to get 4 teams into the college football playoff. So there is plenty of room. And these 2 teams might make it back to in Atlanta to play in the SEC championship. So yeah, everything's cool. Kirby, you just got to get them on the back end. And if you don't get a first round bye. And there you go. All right, next thing up. The next question. The last time a group of 5 player won the Heisman was 1990 when Ty Detmer, and he was at BYU and they weren't a Power 5 team at that point in time. And he threw for 5,000 yards and 28 interceptions at BYU. What does Ashton Jeanty from Boise State have to do to break this streak? All right. First things first. The last time that a Heisman was won by a group of 5 player was Ty Detmer. I didn't realize that the dude threw 28 interceptions and still won the Heisman Trophy. You could never get away with that these days. But did he deserve it? Probably, right? But Ashton Jeanty over at Boise State, the dude through 4 games already has 845 yards. Like we are approaching, Barry Sanders in 1988 territory. And this was a dude who was a 2-star recruit coming out of high school. And, a big reason why he isn't that is the primary back. He wasn't even the primary back when he was in Frisco, Texas at high school until his senior year. But we should have known he was special, and recruiters should have known he was special when in Texas he had over 2,600 yards of offense, 41 touchdowns in 12 games. And now the dude is a human first down. He's averaging 10 yards a carry in college football. And he played against a top 5 team in the Oregon Ducks right now. He's on pace to break all of Barry Sanders' records. And he probably doesn't get the Heisman unless he actually does it. And I'm not even sure if at that point in time he's going to get the Heisman Trophy. Because to win the Heisman Trophy, you have to have huge performances, flashy athleticism. And if you're not a quarterback at the top 5 ranked program, you probably have to do something that's never been done before. And Ashton Jeanty has 9 games. And I say 9 because if Boise doesn't make the Mountain West title game, this is already a moot point because of the Heisman's history. Because they have made it almost impossible for a group of 5 players to win and also non-quarterbacks to win. But he also has 9 games to rush for 1,784 more yards, and he's currently on pace to do it. And there's not anybody on the schedule that looks like they're going to be able to stop it. It's going to be his health. As long as he don't get one of them leg drop tackles, he'll be all right. And if he doesn't do it in 13 games, then he'll have a shot as long as Boise State is the group of 5 representative for the college football playoff. But that's going to be too late, though, for the Heisman voting. But it will be interesting is if Jeanty comes up with a few yards short and Boise doesn't make the playoff. Because in any other circumstance, I'd advise Jeanty to sit out a meaningless bowl game and prep for the NFL draft. But that yardage record, that elusive record, has had a chance to stand for a very, very long time. And he could make as much money holding a record like that after his football career is over as he might make as an NFL prospect is done, because most running backs, they're done by the time that they're 29 years old. And my son asked me this the other day. He said, Dad, would you rather win the Heisman Trophy or an NFL Super Bowl MVP? And I was like, damn. Now, on one hand, a Super Bowl MVP is a big deal. Huge deal. And it's going to give you many, many opportunities if you want to do media work, you want to do speaking, anything like that. But winning a Heisman Trophy, that puts you in rare air, territory. You're always going to be able to work in college football. You're going to be able to be a speaker. You're going to get, like Hall of Fame. I mean, that is, and you're probably going to the College Football Hall of Fame as well. So now you're going to be at least in one Hall of Fame. You have what's even more exclusive than a gold jacket in the NFL. But that's really the NFL Hall of Fame is really the only thing that matches up financially with winning a Heisman Trophy. You get Heisman House commercials, you get all sorts of things that come with it. But I still have my list of Heisman favorites. And right now, I got Travis Hunter 1, Ashton Jeanty 2. That's what I got. And then I got Jalen Milroe 3. And we keep on going from there. All right, fourth question. And you guys can make sure that you guys leave your comments in the chat and we will get to them because we appreciate your time. We appreciate your energy and everything with you guys being here. The fourth question up. Did you see Trent Dilfer's explanation for his "it's not like this is Alabama" comment? And I actually loved it. I appreciated him for that comment because there's a lot of people that are afraid to say it. And if you don't know, Trent Dilfer is UAB's head coach. And he is mincing no words about you at UAB. So what happened is he was given a post-game press conference after their 41-18 loss to Navy. And he actually allowed his grandson to come up and, sit on his lap at the podium. Like the same way that we've seen out of, in NBA players in the playoffs. They come up there, kid, and all that stuff. And at the time, he said he can come up. There's only two of them. And he was talking about the amount of reporters in attendance. So only two reporters in attendance at the post-game press conference. And then he said, it's not like this is freaking Alabama. Let's go. And truthfully, I wouldn't give a damn if it was Alabama. If the head coach want to bring his grandson up there, I am A-okay with it. And there is a very particular reason for that. Is because, and in Trent Dilfer's situation, I love it because he already lost a kid. Like he literally lost a son. And he probably wants to spend as much time with anybody who loves him and that he loves as humanly possible. So I am never going to criticize anybody for that because I promise you this, I'll bring my kids up there now. If that's the case, I'll bring my kids on the Unafraid Show, bring them wherever we are, wherever I'm at. If they're not welcome, then guess what? I don't need to be there either. I don't. That's just the truth. All right, next question though. Harold Perkins, obviously LSU linebacker, is out for the season. Did he do enough to justify going to the NFL draft or in the NIL era? Should he plan on putting himself on the open market in the transfer portal? First thing is, this depends on what Harold Perkins wants. Now, this was a kid who was a 5-star, number 5 player in the country coming out of high school, according to 247. Rivals had him at 34. On3 and ESPN had him both as the number 1 linebacker in the country. Now, as a freshman, the kid was all SEC. He was, all SEC first team, a freshman All-American, and had a 2-time SEC Defensive Player of the Week. So sophomore year, he regressed, it looked like a little bit, probably making all second team SEC on reputation. And this year he went down with a torn ACL. Number one, I would always advise players that have eligibility remaining because I left early. I left as a junior to go to the NFL draft. Number one, get your draft rating. Get it early, put it in as early as possible. The way then you can get it back and make an educated choice. If you are going to be a first-round pick as a linebacker, get out of there. Get out of school. Go get your bread. As a linebacker, if you're going to go second round, now we got to consider it. And I told a couple players that were coming out or thinking about coming out in the draft this last year, the thing that you have to do is figure out, because these coaches and people that have connections with scouts and people in the NFL. So ask what the things that they need to see out of your game are. If there's something that you can't change, like how tall I am, then if that's the only knock on you, then you got to come out because you're not going to get any taller. If it's your speed or if it's your strength or if it's something that you can actually improve on and fix and that will significantly change your draft stock, then yes, you should go back to school. But in this NIL era, Harold Perkins, the dude, is going to be highly sought after if he puts his name in the transfer portal. And things are not going according to plan right now on defense in LSU. So you may actually see Harold Perkins not leave LSU not for NIL money, even though he will get NIL money. He may leave because he wants a different defensive opportunity and a chance to grow and potentially be a first round pick. So that's that. All right, sixth question in the Unafraid Show mailbag, and you guys can send it to I'm mad, IMMAD, at unafraidshow.com, at George Wrighster on Twitter, Instagram, wherever else, or at Unafraid Show on those platforms as well, and we will get them on the show. Or you can drop them in the chat today, and I will absolutely answer your question. So make sure you smash that like button and everything else. All right, sixth question up. With Utah losing at home to Arizona, does the Big 12 have a single legitimate contender this year? Could that contender actually be Colorado? All right, first thing is we can't ignore the team that I have, number 5 in the Unafraid Show college football rankings, and that is, oh, I'm sorry, not number 5 in the top 15, and that is BYU. BYU has been playing really, really good football, and they deserve all the credit in the world right now because this is a good football team, and they are playing really, really well. So we cannot ignore them, not even a little bit. And so that is very, very important. But I did want to show you guys, in case you missed it on Unafraid Show, the top 25, the top 25 list. And here it is right now, the top 25 for week 6 in college football. So there it is there. So we got Texas, Alabama, Tennessee, Penn State, Oregon, Ohio State, Miami, Georgia, Michigan, SC in the top 10. Then you got BYU, Notre Dame, LSU, Utah, Missouri, Iowa State, Clemson, Oklahoma, Indiana, Louisville, Illinois, Ole Miss, K-State, Boise State, and UNLV. Now, I get asked all the time, George, how do these rankings come out? I'm saying they're based upon when we put all the information in, it is based upon the 3 most important criteria. And this is why our rankings are consistently great and better than pretty much everybody else's, because it is quality wins, schedule played, and dominance. And somebody sent in a comment. They said, George, how are you so ahead on Ole Miss, because you had dropped them previously in the rankings way ahead of everybody else? And I was like, it's easy, because when you use that criteria, you know that Ole Miss hadn't played anybody. So of course I didn't have them inside the top 10. What kind of sense does that make? Ohio State just played its first Power 5 opponent a week ago. So yes, they're not ranked as high as other people have them ranked. Do I necessarily believe that Penn State is better than Oregon and Ohio State? No. But what they've done on the field, who they've played, and who they've beat gives them a slight edge. It's just the facts. All right. And then that gives us this playoff bracket, which will be released as well today. And people are always curious. They're like, George, listen, I just use the formula that the committee is going to use. That's why Texas is number 1, Penn State 2, represented by the Big 10, ACC at 3, the Big 12 at 4. They're going to get automatic berths and buys. So, and then it goes from there from the rankings. So it's actually been really cool to see how it changes every single week. And you guys make sure that you hit the Twitter feed, hit everywhere to make sure that you guys see this, because it's cool. But to go back to the question about the Big 12 and Colorado. Yes, Colorado can be that representative, because they're sitting at 4-1 and they just beat the hell out of UCF, who was a 12-point favorite. And Utah lost at home to Arizona, but this Utah team is confusing because it is hard to rank them properly because they're playing with their backup quarterback and true freshman Isaac Wilson. Cam Rising's out. They were pretending, oh, he'll be back in a week. Liars. I told y'all. And everybody that said, oh, George, you don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, all right, look. We don't even know if the dude's coming back at all. But anyways, if he does come back, I do believe that Utah is still the favorite to beat in the Big 12. They just can't handle any more losses before he comes back. All right. Now BYU, that team looks physically dominant, but their quarterback play is honestly average, and their skill positions are mostly by committee. And then you got Iowa State, who's undefeated. They're literally in the same exact boat. Literally. Then you got Texas Tech, who's 2-0 in the conference. But if you look at expected outcomes based on the net rating, they've essentially been lucky to escape with both of the conference wins. And I know Big 12 fans might not want to hear this, but Colorado might actually win this league on offensive firepower and defensive playmaking ability, because Colorado has proven that they're not going to be able to compete with the teams that have blue chip pass rushes. So the answer might just be the Big 12 conference is a second tier league this particular year. And that doesn't mean it's not interesting or entertaining. It just means that they don't have the ability to hang with the best teams in the SEC or the Big Ten. That's just the truth. Utah is your best bet because Colorado, if they face a pass rush, it is going to be a problem, a major problem. But you got to give them credit. This defense is significantly improved from what it was, and their offensive line is at least keeping Shedeur upright for the most part. All right, question 7. If you are Lincoln Riley, how much credit do you accept for USC's improvement on defense when accepting that the credit means that you probably have to accept responsibility for how bad you've been in the past? Lincoln Riley, until this year, has never, not at USC, not at Oklahoma, put together a comparable, a competent defense. They have not. And since he's been at USC in 2022, 29 points per game allowed, and they got a ton of turnovers that year. 423 yards allowed per game. And then last year in 2023, 34 points per game allowed and 434 yards allowed per game. This year, significant improvement. And yes, these numbers will go up as they play in Big Ten play. But so far through 4 games, 17 points per game allowed and only 305 yards allowed. Oh, so if Lincoln Riley wants credit for this, that means that he's going to have to acknowledge. And if you were asking me, if I were Lincoln Riley, how I would answer that question, I would be like, look, I was a young head coach when I got this job, offensive minded. I have had to learn that the defense is real, that we got to play defense if we want to win at a high level and not just win our conference. But if we want to be national championship contenders, we got to play defense. But my concern for Lincoln Riley and USC is this. This defensive improvement that they've had, DeAnton Lynn, their defensive coordinator, is going to be somebody's head coach next year. So now, who then do you replace him with? That's the question. Do you elevate Eric Henderson to defensive coordinator? Do you move Entz, the linebacker coach who was North Dakota State's head coach, to defensive coordinator? You do have options, but that would be a scary proposition, only getting a great defensive coordinator for 1 year. Oh, I love this one. I love this question here. Now, George, can you explain the cowgorithm? Oh, that's a question for you. So the cowgorithm. So for the longest time, the Cow Bears have been the butt of jokes around college football about being the hub of all the left-wing progressive thought and being too far left of being politically the most politically liberal conference. And Cal was the program that made an honest attempt at organizing a player union a few years ago. But it's just a goofy stereotype. And they've also produced plenty of independent thinkers like Aaron Rodgers and Jaylen Brown. See, they do it all, baby. But for proof, that we've known about Cal Twitter since long before they got popular trolling their opponents by threatening to spread the woke agenda. Listen, what we have seen out of this school and everything else has been absolutely hilarious. So that's what the Cal algorithm is. It is Cal Twitter. It is Cal's version of Black Twitter. That's what it is. All right, question number 9. Has anybody had a crazier, more up and down week than UNLV? Oh, no. And I got to applaud UNLV 4-0 because they're 4-0 ranked in the top 25 after beating a Fresno State team by 45 points that had beaten UNLV 6 years in a row. So good job on Barry Odom and their offensive coordinator, Brennan Marion, and Hodge Malik Williams, the quarterback that replaced Matthew Sluka, had 3 touchdown passes, 13 for 16 passing, 182 yards, and then rushed for an additional 119 yards and a touchdown. Then their wide receiver, Ricky White, he then made the news by asking the Circuit Casino CEO, who had pledged $100,000 to keep Matthew Sluka in the program, he asked him to promise that to the Rebels offensive line. Because UNLV, they got a lot of bad press for the Sluka situation, but not as much as Sluka himself got. The school's doing a lot of CYA, cover your ass, and the kid got cooked. But the university is clearly, and the football team is in good hands with Williams running Brennan Marion's offense. So they're in good shape. And the last question is, did you see Jordan Clark, son of Ryan Clark, headbutt Chris Bell in Notre Dame's victory over Louisville? So Jordan Clark took a 15-yard penalty for headbutting an opponent. And I was like, ah. Now, Ryan Clark did come to his defense. ESPN analyst Ryan Clark came to his defense. He said the kid had spit on him previously. And I get it. If you spit on me, I am going to try to do anything I can. I want to rip your eyeballs out. And this happened to me when we were playing against Oregon State when I was in college. I was as a freshman year, dog walking the Lawrence Grant. He was a defensive end. He ended up drafted in the NFL. I dumped him over in front of Dennis Erickson and because he was talking trash to me. I was like, you gotta have somebody over here better than this dude, man. Man, I came back out on the field. The Lawrence Grant tried to spit in my face. It landed on my damn face mask. Landed on my face mask. And I will never forget, tried to fight the dude at a party later and everything. It was, I cannot tell you, I've never been this angry on a football field, including when Scott Fujita tried to choke me. And I'll tell that story on a later date. But you guys, that is the Unafraid Show mailbag. Make sure that you like, subscribe, tell a friend about the show, and most importantly, share, like, give it a thumbs up right now before we get off the stream, and share. Peace out.